When Duke, the courageous FBI K-9, first heard the voice echoing through the historic Southern Manor's basement window, he genuinely thought it was a ghost. After all, the entire small town of Asheville, North Carolina, believed that respected patriarch George Miller had tragically died 6 months ago. The German Shepherd's watchful amber eyes, sharp as broken glass, pierced through the misty Appalachian twilight as he pressed closer to the rusted iron bars, investigating the strange, impossible sound. His glorious golden coat, matted and filthy from long, desperate weeks as a stray on the streets, trembled slightly against the cold, unforgiving granite foundation of the old house. "Please, somebody, help me," came a broken, desperate whisper from the crushing darkness below, a chilling plea caught on a hidden camera. Duke's trained ears snapped sharply forward, locking onto the sound, confirming this wasn't the rambling of a confused mind, but a terrifying, real-life horror. This sound was pure, raw desperation, a cry for salvation that would later become key evidence in this elder abuse exposed case. The voice carried the dignified, educated cadence of a former high school principal pushed impossibly beyond his limits, a shocking victim of a family betrayal documentary. From somewhere directly above, heavy, calculated footsteps thundered across the antique oak floorboards, signaling danger. A woman's voice, belonging to Brooke, the adoptive daughter and master manipulator, sharp and cutting as a winter wind, sliced through the fear. 48 hours, old man, then you're gone to that remote Wyoming cattle ranch, Brooke hissed with cold, heartless finality. And absolutely nobody will ever find your body there, ending this rural land fraud conspiracy once and for all. The oppressive basement fell silent again, save for the weak, labored breathing of the trapped man, a silence that spoke volumes about his suffering. Duke, the resourceful K-9, had survived 2 brutal, lonely winters as a stray, his instincts honed razor-sharp by hunger and the crushing solitude of the Carolina woods. But something far deeper than mere survival pulled the loyal German Shepherd toward this voice, a recognition of mission that transcended species and fear. This man wasn't just temporarily trapped. He was actively dying by degrees, enduring relentless psychological torture, a scene captured in this compelling, shocking family betrayal narrative. As Duke settled his powerful, 90-pound frame against the foundation, physically blocking the icy November wind from the single tiny window, he made an undeniable, heroic choice that would change the course of justice. He wasn't leaving Miller's Creek tonight. Not ever, until his secret mission was complete. The courageous FBI K-9 watched as the old man, George, peered through the bars, thin as a rail, weak as a newborn calf, but his eyes held the sharp, undiminished intelligence of someone fighting fiercely to stay alive. Deep wrinkles mapped a lifetime of kind smiles, though none graced his pale features now, only the shadow of despair. "Well, I'll be," George whispered, extending a trembling, skeletal hand through the rusted steel. "You're real, aren't you, boy, a true 4-legged angel?" Duke allowed the weathered, desperate fingers to stroke his muzzle, the touch a gentle, profound caress of a man who hadn't felt kindness in 6 months. "Name's George Miller," the voice cracked with raw, sudden emotion. "Used to run the school right here in Asheville for 43 years. I raised that girl from nothing, poured my life into her, and this is how she repays my love." His laugh held no humor, only bitter regret. The German Shepherd's keen senses cataloged every detail: the sour smell of unwashed bedding, the metallic tang of old blood, the underlying, sickly scent of disease and neglect. George wore thin pajamas that hung loose on his diminished frame, a metal cot, a bucket, scattered empty pill bottles. This wasn't a basement. It was a secret, illegal prison designed for elder abuse. "She tells folks I've got the dementia, that I'm completely losing my mind," George continued, his voice finding a small spark of strength, as if Duke's heroic presence had rekindled something vital within his soul. Says I'm in some fancy Charlotte facility getting the best care money can buy. What a perfect lie. Truth is, I forget things sometimes, but I sure as hell ain't crazy. Not yet. And I refuse to let this master manipulator daughter win. Duke, the highly trained K9, circled a small window, his tactical eyes noting weak points and potential escape routes. Something deep in his Federal Service dog genetic memory recognized the sinister setup of a covert operation gone horribly wrong. "You hungry, boy?" George asked with genuine concern. Though he clearly had no food to offer, a fellow prisoner sharing the same gnawing emptiness. Footsteps creaked overhead once more, heavier this time, announcing Brooks' return. Duke's ears flattened instantly, and he melted seamlessly into the deep shadows beside the foundation, a ghost of gold fur. Through the old floorboards came Brooks' voice, cold, crisp, and calculating. "Robert Hayes is bringing the specialized truck tonight," she announced. "The Wyoming ranch is remote, no neighbors, absolutely no questions. The old fool will have a tragic accident, and that'll be the quiet end of our problem, and the hidden will documents will secure the estate." A man's voice, belonging to the accomplice Robert Hayes, responded. "What about the real will, the one that exposed the rural land fraud?" "Already changed, idiot," Brooke replied, her tone dripping with contempt. "It's amazing what a confused old man will sign when he's desperate for his heart medication. I had everything covered." Duke waited patiently, silent and rigid until the voices faded, then returned to the window, his expression grim and determined. George's face had gone ashen, his eyes wide with paralyzing fear. "Tonight," George whispered, his voice trembling uncontrollably. "Lord, help me, tonight. They're taking me away to die a fake death." Duke pressed his cold nose gently through the bars, making a soft, meaningful whining sound that somehow conveyed the promise that words could not touch. "You are not alone anymore." Tears of profound relief streamed down George's weathered cheeks. "That dog has more heart and honor than most of the humans walking this earth," he choked out, his faith in loyalty immediately restored. As the crushing darkness settled over Miller's Creek, Duke began his silent, methodical planning. Tonight was only hours away, not tomorrow night. He had immediate, vital work to do. The scene shifts to the backstory, narrated cinematically. Flashback. December 1997, Charlotte Children's Home. The institutional fluorescent lights of the facility hummed with monotonous boredom as George Miller walked down the sterile hallway, his devoted wife Eleanor's hand tied tightly in his. They had painfully tried for children for 15 heartbreaking years, miscarriages, failed adoptions, an endless cycle of sorrow. At 52, George had almost entirely given up hope for a family. "She's been returned 3 times, Ms. Evelyn, the weary counselor, explained, her voice heavy with professional regret. "Brooke's 7 now, been with us since she was 3, and the other families found her difficult to manage." Through the common room window, George spotted her immediately, a small, solitary girl with wild blonde hair, sitting alone in the corner, methodically tearing pages from a bright picture book. "Her parents?" Eleanor asked softly, her gaze locked on the child. "Drug overdose, both of them," Ms. Evelyn's voice dropped to a near whisper. "Brooke found the bodies, and she shows anger issues, lying, stealing, and manipulation far beyond her years." George watched as little Brooke looked up, her pale blue eyes meeting his through the cold glass. For a brief, agonizing moment, something raw flickered there, pure, defenseless vulnerability, before the practiced mask slammed back down with a sickening finality. "Every single child deserves love and a chance at a normal life," George told Eleanor that night, his resolve unshakable. Eleanor squeezed his hand, but her voice carried a low thrum of worry. "George, honey, that child has darkness in her eyes. I felt it today." "Then we love her anyway," George replied simply, holding his wife tight. Isn't that what unconditional love means? Choosing someone even when it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. The narrative returns to the present day. Present day, 6:30 a.m. Duke padded silently through the pre-dawn darkness of Asheville's residential streets, his stomach cramped and aching with hunger. But George's immediate, critical needs came first. The German Shepherd, functioning in deep cover, had discovered something remarkable about himself in the past few hours. His instincts were sharper than any normal dog's. His movements more tactical and purposefully controlled, a testament to his federal training. At the Blue Plate Diner, he waited patiently behind the grease-stained dumpster until young Leo, the dishwasher, emerged with heavy bags of trash. "Well, hey there, big guy," Leo said, spotting Duke's golden form with surprise. "You look like you've seen far better days out here." Duke approached cautiously, tail wagging just enough to seem friendly, but not desperately starved. "You're not just any stray, are you, you incredible service dog?" Leo murmured, recognizing the dog's unique, dignified bearing. Leo disappeared inside, quickly returning with 2 sizzling hamburger patties and a fresh container of cool water, a small act of kindness. "My granddad had a dog just like you in Vietnam," Leo confided. "He said they were special, smarter than most people, and completely fearless." The scene shifts to another flashback. Summer 2005, Miller's Creek. 8-year-old Brooke stood in the doorway of George's study, her face a mask of practiced, flawless innocence. A missing $20 bill from Eleanor's purse had mysteriously reappeared in her backpack, along with candy she swore she'd found on the street. "Brooke, honey, we've talked about taking things that don't belong to us," George said gently, trying to keep the disappointment out of his voice. "I didn't take anything." Her voice rose to that particular, ear-splitting pitch that immediately set Eleanor's teeth on edge. "You always blame me for everything. You don't even love me." The fake tears came instantly, streaming down her cheeks on cue. George's heart broke a little more as he gathered her into his loving, unsuspecting arms. "Of course, I love you, sweetheart. You're our daughter, our miracle." From the kitchen doorway, Eleanor watched with a growing, cold unease. The child played George like a master violinist, and he simply could not, or would not, see the terrifying, ingrained deception. The narrative returns to the present day. 7:15 a.m. Sarah Davies pulled her dusty veterinary van into the Miller's Creek driveway, clipboard in hand for what should have been a routine wellness check on the farm animals. But the Southern Manor had been seemingly abandoned for 6 months, ever since George's supposed tragic death. She was reaching for her radio to call the appointment off when she spotted the German Shepherd emerging from behind the house, moving with intense, focused purpose. The dog was carrying something in his mouth. Fresh food, she realized, but there were no other animals, no trace of life here. Sarah followed cautiously at a safe distance. Her years treating animals had taught her to expertly read body language. This dog wasn't just scavenging randomly. He had a fixed, secret destination. When Duke disappeared around the foundation, Sarah crept closer through the thick, overgrown garden. She could clearly see him at the basement window, pushing his offering through the rusted iron bars, a gesture of profound dog loyalty. "Good boy," came a weak, muffled voice from below. "You're going to keep me alive and secure the evidence yet." Sarah's blood turned to cold, crushing ice. She knew that distinct voice, had heard it every Sunday in the front pew of the Asheville Community Church, had seen its owner at every school function for 40 years. "Mr. Miller," she whispered, creeping closer to the window, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The face that appeared was gaunt, aged impossibly beyond its years. But it was, tragically and undeniably, George Miller. "Sarah, little Gracie Davies." George's eyes widened in impossible disbelief. "My lord, child, what are you doing here? How did you find me?" "Mr. Miller, the whole town attended your funeral 6 months ago." Sarah's mind reeled violently. "Brooke said you had a sudden, massive heart attack in your sleep. She buried you, sir. We all saw the closed casket. George's laugh was bitter, hollow, and haunting. The only thing truly dying here is my hope, child, he confessed. My own flesh and blood has me caged like a wild animal while she systematically sells off every piece of property I worked my whole life to build. The scene shifts to a final memory. Flashback. Fall 2018. Miller's Creek. Eleanor Miller drew her final, labored breath on a Tuesday morning in October, her hand held tightly in George's after 47 years of marriage. Brooke stood coldly at the foot of the bed, dry-eyed, actively checking her phone for messages. The funeral home needs to know about arrangements, Brooke said emotionlessly, before Eleanor's body had even grown cold. And the lawyer needs to see you immediately about the revised will. Brooke, honey, your mother, just wait a minute, George pleaded, grief-stricken and lost. I know what happened, Dad. Her voice was flat, ruthlessly businesslike, a truly master manipulator daughter. But life goes on, and we need to move forward now. She had started calling him George instead of Dad after her 18th birthday. We're not really family, she'd explained cruelly. Let's not pretend. But she had always come back to Miller's Creek, back to George, even through law school and her first marriage. Now, finally, George understood why. The land, the money, the rural land fraud plan. The narrative returns to the present day and the ticking clock, present day, 8:30 a.m. We have to get you out of this horrifying place, Sarah whispered urgently, scanning the area for dangers. I can call the FBI. No, George's voice was sharp with sudden panic. Child, you don't understand the depth of this corruption. Brooke has the sheriff in her pocket. His daughter got through law school on a scholarship from my foundation. The county judge owes his election to her campaign contributions, and half the town council works for her law firm. The whole system is compromised. Sarah felt the walls of small-town corruption closing in around them, a chilling, inescapable trap. Then what in God's name do we do? She whispered, terrified. There's a safe, George said weakly. It's hidden behind Eleanor's portrait in the library upstairs. The combination is June 12, 1960, the very day I met my Eleanor. Inside, you'll find my real, hidden will documents and indisputable evidence of what Brooke's been systematically doing. Duke, the ever-watchful service dog, had positioned himself strategically, his ears alert for approaching footsteps, his demeanor almost military disciplined, showing immense dog loyalty. Who trained your incredible dog? Sarah asked, utterly astonished by his purposeful behavior. George looked completely puzzled, then profoundly moved. He's not my dog, child. He showed up yesterday, like a miracle, a genuine four-legged angel sent from heaven to protect me. A car door slammed loudly in the front drive. Duke's body went rigid, a deep, silent growl rumbling low in his chest. Brooke's back, George whispered, his face tight with fear. Sarah, you have to go right now. If she finds you here, we're both lost. I'm not leaving you, Sarah insisted, her voice shaking but firm. You have to, child, George pleaded. That girl has ice water in her veins and a ruthless lawyer's mind for covering her tracks. She's already killed me once in the eyes of the law. Doing it for real won't trouble her conscience one bit. Sarah backed away reluctantly as Brooke's expensive heels clicked across the front porch. Duke remained at the window, a silent, powerful golden sentinel, the star of this German Shepherd rescue true story. I'll be back, Sarah mouthed, sealing a vow. George nodded, his tired eyes filled with the first, fragile spark of hope he'd felt in months of his nightmare. That dog has more sense than Sunday, he whispered to Duke. Led her right to us, didn't you, boy? A true, loyal hero? As Sarah disappeared into the tree line, Brooke's voice carried from inside the house, chilling and clear. Robert, it's me. We have a critical problem, she stated, her voice tight with rage. I think someone's been sniffing around the property. A stupid veterinarian. Move up the timeline immediately, We do it tonight, right after dark." Duke pressed closer to the window, his amber eyes reflecting an intelligence that seemed almost human, his senses confirming the terrifying reality of the imminent danger. Whatever he was, wherever he'd come from, he fully understood the high stakes of this FBI K-9 operation. The clock was no longer ticking down to tomorrow night. It was ticking down to the absolute darkness, less than 12 hours away. George reached through the bars to touch the dog's massive head. "Well, boy," he whispered to his true friend, "looks like it's now or never for the great escape." The final, massive confrontation and resolution began. Sarah Davies's hands trembled violently as she pushed through the glass doors of the Buncombe County Courthouse. The cold marble floors echoed with her frantic footsteps as she approached the records department, her veterinary bag clutched tight against her chest like a desperate shield. "I need to see the death certificate for George Miller," she told the clerk, a young woman with kind eyes and tired shoulders. "Oh, poor Mr. Miller," the clerk sighed, pulling the file with practiced, routine efficiency. "Heart attack in his sleep, according to Dr. Kevin Stone's report. A peaceful way to go, I suppose." Sarah studied the official document, her medical training instantly catching details others would miss. The time of death was listed as 3:17 a.m., but the official signature was dated 2 days later, and the cause of death was vaguely listed as cardiac arrest due to natural causes. "Who reported the death?" Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice level. "His daughter, Brooke Miller," the clerk whispered, leaning in conspiratorially. "She's been running herself ragged, taking care of him. Some folks said she should have put him in a home, but she insisted on caring for him herself." Sarah's stomach turned over with sickening dread. The master manipulator daughter's perfect, flawless cover story. She drove straight to Oak Grove Street to the modest house where Helen Vance had lived for 30 years, the former housekeeper. "Mrs. Vance, I need to ask you urgently about Mr. Miller." Sarah plunged in immediately. Helen's face immediately clouded over with raw emotion. "That poor man worked himself to death, if you ask me, though I suppose at 82, we all got to go sometime," she replied, worry etched onto her face. "You were his housekeeper for how long?" 28 years come Christmas." Helen's voice grew suddenly bitter. "Right up until 6 months ago when that girl, Brooke, fired me, said Mr. George didn't need looking after anymore." "Mrs. Vance, did Mr. Miller seem legitimately sick to you before he died?" Sarah pressed, her eyes searching the older woman's face for any sign of deception. Helen was quiet for a long, heavy moment, her fingers worrying the hem of her robe. "Something just ain't right about all of this, Sarah," she finally confessed. "Mr. George was sharp as a tack the last time I saw him, little forgetful maybe, but nothing more than any man his age. And he loved that old house too much to just slip away quiet like. He told me he wanted to die in his own bed, looking out at Eleanor's rose garden. But Brooke said he passed in the night, peaceful as you please, never even called for help. Did you notice anything strange about Brooke's behavior before he died?" Helen glanced around nervously, as if afraid of being overheard. That girl was always secretive, but toward the end, she got downright paranoid, locking doors that had never been locked, counting his medications like they were gold coins, and the hushed phone calls late at night. "I heard her once saying something about moving the timeline and too many people asking too many questions," Helen recounted, a tremor in her voice. "Did you hear anything else? Something about Wyoming, a big ranch in Wyoming where no one would ever find him," Helen whispered, grabbing Sarah's arm with sudden, desperate strength. "You don't think, Sarah? You don't think something truly horrific happened to Mr. George?" Before Sarah could answer, Duke materialized silently at the back door, his golden form visible through the screen. He sat perfectly still, but his intense amber eyes were alert and urgent. The silent communication of this German Shepherd rescue true story continuing. "That's the Miller's old dog, isn't it?" Helen asked, confused. "Actually, Mrs. Vance, I think he's trying to tell us something very, very important," Sarah realized, connecting the pieces of the dangerous puzzle. Sarah immediately followed Duke back to Miller's Creek, her mind racing with possibilities. The courageous canine moved with purpose, leading her not to the basement window, but directly to the front door. He sat and waited patiently, as if giving her professional permission to break the law and enter the house. The lock was old, the kind that yielded easily to a credit card and patience, a whisper of a barrier. Inside, the house felt like a mausoleum. Furniture covered in sheets, family photos deliberately turned face down, the lingering scent of disuse, secrets, and betrayal. Duke led her straight to the library, where Eleanor Miller's portrait hung above an antique desk. Sarah studied the painting, a woman with gentle eyes and a knowing smile, as if she had expected this moment years ago. June 12, 1960. Sarah whispered, turning the complex dial on the hidden wall safe. The tumblers clicked precisely into place. Inside were documents that made her heart momentarily stop. George's real, hidden will documents, dated just 2 years ago, which left everything to the Asheville Animal Sanctuary and the Miller Educational Foundation. Brooke Miller was mentioned only once with a small, conditional inheritance and a short note. I pray someday she finds the peace that has eternally eluded her troubled heart. But it was the other papers that made Sarah's hands shake uncontrollably. Bank statements showing systematic, large withdrawals from George's accounts. Medical records indicating a pattern of increasing medication dosages that didn't match any legitimate treatment plan. All evidence of elder abuse exposed on camera. And at the bottom of the stack, a final, chilling letter in George's own careful handwriting. The ultimate evidence. If something happens to me, know that I am not as confused as I sometimes appear, and I am not losing my mind. Brooke has been putting something bitter in my food. I can taste the bitterness, though I cannot prove it. My heart medication has been deliberately tampered with. Some days I feel strong, others I can barely stand. And I believe she is systematically poisoning me while stealing my life's work. I pray I am profoundly wrong, but if I am found dead under any suspicious circumstances, please investigate this truth. The truth matters more than my reputation. George Miller, written in sound mind on March 15, 2024. Sarah clutched the letter, her vision blurring with sudden, righteous tears. This was absolute evidence of attempted murder, elder abuse, and massive fraud. Crimes that could put Brooke away for life. Duke's sudden, sharp bark made her look up through the library window. She could see Brooke's black Mercedes pulling into the driveway, the master manipulator daughter returning for her final, deadly task. Sarah quickly photographed all the documents with her phone, returned them meticulously to the safe, and closed the portrait just as the front door swung open with a resounding thud. "Hello, is anyone in the house? I know you're here." Brooke's cold, clear voice echoed through the vast, empty rooms. Sarah and Duke slipped out the back door, her heart hammering a desperate rhythm as she heard Brooke's expensive heels clicking relentlessly through the rooms above her. They made it to the tree line just as Brooke appeared at the library window, her face scanning the yard with predatory intensity. At the basement window, George was waiting, his condition having visibly deteriorated since morning. "Did you find the evidence?" he whispered, struggling to breathe. "I found everything, Mr. Miller," Sarah assured him, her voice filled with newfound resolve. "And Mr. Miller, we're going to get you out of this prison tonight." "No, child, it's too dangerous. She's moved up her timeline," George gasped, his eyes wide with fear. "They're coming for me right after dark. I heard her on the phone an hour ago." "Then we'll be ready for them, sir, with the FBI K-9 on our side." George's eyes filled with sudden, overwhelming tears. "Grace, honey, I need you to know something about my daughter, Jennifer," he pleaded. "She lives in Colorado, or at least she used to. Brooke told me Jennifer wanted nothing to do with me, that she was deeply ashamed of having a crazy old father. Mr. Miller, I need you to find her and tell her I never stopped loving her. Tell her the truth about what happened here." Duke pressed his nose through the bars, whining softly, the dog's loyalty visible in every action. "This boy has been the only true kindness I've known in months," George whispered, stroking the dog's head one last time. "Promise me, Sarah, whatever happens tonight, make sure Duke is safe. He has too much good in him to suffer for helping me." The sun was setting dramatically over the Blue Ridge Mountains, painting the sky in shades of anxious amber and foreboding blood gold. In only 6 hours, Brooke would return with her accomplice and her deadly plan to make George Miller disappear forever. Sarah looked at Duke, whose amber eyes reflected an intelligence and absolute determination that seemed almost human. A silent FBI K-9 partner. "We're not going to let that evil happen," she said quietly, her resolve ironclad. "Are we, boy?" Duke's tail thumped once against the cold ground, a sound like a judge's gavel, sealing a life or death promise that would change everything. The climax of this German Shepherd rescue true story about to begin. Sarah's hands shook as she dialed the number on the faded, worn collar tag she'd finally noticed around Duke's thick neck. The leather was old, the metal disc scratched, but the federal phone number was still perfectly legible. As the line connected, she heard the crisp, professional voice of a government receptionist. "FBI Field Office, Charlotte Division. How may I direct your call?" I need to speak to someone immediately about a missing K-9 unit," Sarah stammered urgently. "The tag says Duke, Federal Service Dog, property of the FBI." A pause stretched across the line, heavy with shock. "Ma'am, can you hold the line, please?" The silence felt deafening as Sarah watched Duke through her clinic window. The German Shepherd sat perfectly still, his amber eyes fixed on her face, as if he could hear every single word. "This is Agent Sarah Chen, K-9 Unit Supervisor," a new, authoritative voice cut in. "You said you found Duke?" "Yes," Sarah confirmed, her voice now steady. "He's been actively helping me investigate a complex case of elder abuse right here in Asheville, Tennessee." "Agent Chen, I truly believe Duke has been actively working this case far longer than either of us realized, perhaps even 18 months. Another, longer pause. "Ma'am, I need you to listen very carefully," Agent Chen commanded. "Duke has been officially missing for 18 months. He was the lead dog in Operation Hollow Ground, a federal investigation into massive rural land fraud targeting elderly Americans. His handler, Agent Stevens, was killed during a stakeout in Wyoming. Duke disappeared the same night." Sarah's blood ran ice cold with realization. "Wyoming? Yes," Agent Chen confirmed, her voice hardening. "We've been tracking a network of ruthless criminals who identify elderly landowners, gain their trust, then systematically steal their property through forged documents and coercion. The operation is run by a woman named Brooke Miller and her accomplice, Robert Hayes." The phone nearly slipped from Sarah's trembling fingers. "Brooke Miller is already on your radar? The master manipulator daughter? She's been our primary, untouchable target for 2 years," Agent Chen revealed. "The problem is she's brilliant, covers her tracks too well, uses legal loopholes, and has deep connections in local law enforcement." "Agent Chen, I think Duke found your evidence," Sarah stated with absolute certainty. "George Miller, Brooke's adoptive father, is alive. She's been holding him prisoner, slowly poisoning him while she steals his property. The ultimate family betrayal." The silence that followed was deafening. "That's impossible. George Miller died 6 months ago. We have the official death certificate. It's forged. He's locked in the basement of his own home, and Brooke plans to move him to Wyoming tonight to murder him." "Ma'am, you need to understand. Duke isn't just any K-9 unit. He was trained specifically for deep cover operations, to work independently for extended periods, to blend in while gathering critical intelligence," Agent Chen explained rapidly. "If he's been protecting George Miller for 18 months, then this German Shepherd rescue true story is even more incredible than we thought." "He's been undercover this entire time?" Sarah asked, overwhelmed. "In a sense, yes. Duke has what we call mission persistence. Once he's assigned a target, he doesn't stop until the job is done," Agent Chen concluded. "Even after Agent Stevens was killed, even after being wounded and left for dead, the loyal German Shepherd continued the mission of justice." Sarah looked at Duke through the window again, seeing him with completely new, respectful eyes. "Agent Chen, there's something else," Sarah rushed to say. "I found evidence in George's safe. Documents proving Brooke has been systematically poisoning him and stealing his money. And there's a letter addressed to his daughter, Jennifer, in Colorado." "What's the daughter's full name?" Agent Chen demanded, her voice intense. "Jessie Miller," Sarah replied, using the full name. "George said she hasn't spoken to him in years, that Brooke told him Jennifer was deeply ashamed of her crazy old father." The silence that followed was the most agonizing yet. When Agent Chen finally spoke again, her voice was tight with suppressed emotion, a true revelation for this shocking family betrayal documentary. "Ma'am, there is no Jessie Miller in Colorado. There never was." Sarah's knees buckled beneath her. "What do you mean? Who is Jessie Miller?" "Jessie Miller is a federal agent," Agent Chen stated flatly. "She's been working undercover for the past 3 years, building a case against Brooke from the inside, a direct result of the Rural Land Fraud Task Force. She's been desperately trying to get close to her father this entire time, but Brooke has been blocking all contact." The room spun violently around Sarah. "George thinks his daughter tragically abandoned him. He's been heartbroken for years, all because of that evil woman. Jessie has been fighting to save her father's life without blowing her deep cover. Every false letter Brooke showed George, every missed birthday, every unanswered phone call, Jessie has been forced to document it all as evidence of psychological torture." Sarah sank into her chair, overwhelmed by the sheer, magnificent magnitude of the deception, the layers of the master manipulator daughter's crimes. How could we have been so blind? How could one person be so evil? "Brooke Miller is a master manipulator, one of the best we've ever tracked," Agent Chen said with professional resignation. "She's been running this con for over a decade, targeting elderly people across 5 states, and George Miller was never just a victim. He was her tragic practice run." Through the window, Sarah saw Duke's ears perk up instantly, his body tensing with immediate recognition. A black sedan was pulling into the clinic parking lot. "Agent Chen, I think we're about to have company. I see an accomplice approaching," Sarah warned, grabbing her emergency medical kit. "Ma'am, you need to get out of there right now," Agent Chen commanded, her voice dropping all pretense of calm. "Take Duke. Go back to the Miller's Creek house. Agent Miller is already en route with a tactical team, but they're still 2 hours away." "2 hours?" Brooke said. "They're moving George tonight." "Then you and Duke are George's only hope now," Agent Chen stated with grim finality. "But Sarah, be extremely careful. Brooke Miller has killed before. Agent Stevens was not her first victim." Sarah hung up the phone, her hands trembling as she grabbed her medical kit. Duke was already at the door, his body language screaming extreme urgency. Outside, Dr. Kevin Stone, Brooke's close friend and the crooked physician who had signed George's fraudulent death certificate, stepped out of the sedan, his face grim and focused. "Dr. Davies," Dr. Stone called out with faux pleasantness as Sarah headed for her truck. "I need to speak with you urgently about some irregularities in your recent veterinary reports regarding the Miller animals." Sarah's blood froze. He knew she'd been investigating the elder abuse exposed case. "I'm sorry, Dr. Stone, but I have an emergency call at the Asheville Animal Sanctuary," Sarah replied, fighting to keep her voice level. "Perhaps we can discuss this tomorrow?" "I'm afraid it absolutely cannot wait, Doctor," Dr. Stone stated, his hand moving to his jacket pocket where Sarah could clearly see the chilling outline of a large syringe. Duke immediately positioned his massive body between Sarah and the corrupted physician, his hackles rising dramatically. A low, guttural growl rumbled from his chest, not the sound of a pet, but the terrifying warning of a highly trained Federal Service dog. "That's an interesting dog you have there," Dr. Stone said, his eyes never leaving Duke's aggressive stance. "Where did you conveniently find him?" "He's a stray, just showed up yesterday," Sarah lied, backing toward her truck's driver's side door. "Funny thing about strays," Dr. Stone continued, slowly withdrawing the glinting syringe from his pocket. "They tend to disappear as quickly as they show up, especially when they start causing critical problems for good people like Brooke." Duke's growl deepened, his entire body coiling like a powerful spring, and Sarah realized with terrifying clarity that Dr. Stone wasn't just an accomplice. He was Brooke's vicious enforcer, the one who made the elder abuse exposed problems permanently disappear. "You signed George Miller's death certificate," Sarah accused, her back hitting the cold metal of her truck. "You helped her fake his death." Dr. Stone smiled, but it was a cold, empty expression that never reached his eyes. "George Miller tragically died of natural causes, heart failure. Very sad, but not uncommon in men his age, especially when they've been under extreme stress," he sneered. "What kind of stress?" Sarah demanded, her hand finding the door handle. "The stress of watching his master manipulator daughter steal everything he worked for, while his real, beloved daughter refuses to take his calls." Dr. Stone took a chilling step closer. "The stress of knowing that everyone he loved has completely abandoned him. It's enough to break any man's heart." The syringe gleamed in the harsh afternoon light. Sarah realized with paralyzing horror that Dr. Stone wasn't just there to threaten her. He was there to murder her, then use her death to crush George's spirit completely. Duke's muscles bunched, ready to launch his massive attack. He was calculating the odds, planning his move. The heroic climax of the dog's loyalty saves owner's life story about to unfold. "The thing about false hope," Sarah said, and she yanked the truck door open with all her might just as Duke launched himself at Dr. Stone, his powerful jaws clamping down instantly on the man's wrist. The deadly syringe flew through the air, shattering harmlessly against the asphalt. Sarah immediately gunned the engine. Duke leapt effortlessly into the passenger seat as Dr. Stone stumbled backward, clutching his profusely bleeding arm. "Miller's Creek," Sarah said to Duke as they sped away, tires squealing. "We have to warn George. They know we have the hidden will documents and the evidence." Duke's amber eyes met hers, and she could swear she saw him nod a clear confirmation. Behind them, drive. Stone was already screaming into his phone, his voice carrying across the parking lot. "Brooke, we have a critical problem. The veterinarian knows everything. Move the old man now. Tonight absolutely can't wait." The scene shifts to the final confrontation. Present day, 4:30 p.m. Sarah's truck skidded violently into the Miller's Creek driveway just as Brooke's black Mercedes disappeared around the bend toward town. Duke leapt from the passenger seat before the vehicle had fully stopped, his powerful legs carrying him straight to the basement window. "George," Sarah called softly, dropping to her knees beside the rusted bars. "We have to get you out of here now. Brooke knows we're on to her. The FBI is on the way." George's haggard face appeared in the shadows, his breathing shallow and labored, each word an agonizing effort. "Sarah, child, you shouldn't have come back. That woman's madder than a wet hen and twice as dangerous." "Mr. Miller, I spoke to the FBI," Sarah insisted, her voice firm. "Duke isn't just any dog. He's been working undercover, part of a federal canine team investigating Brooke's massive fraud for almost 2 years. George's eyes widened in profound, disbelieving wonder as he looked at Duke. "A federal dog," he whispered, a weak, grateful smile crossing his lips. "Well, I'll be damned. That explains why you're smarter than most folks I know, boy." The final, desperate escape begins. While Sarah worked frantically to pry open the weak basement window, Duke had vanished around the side of the house. She could hear him moving with purpose, the sound of something heavy being dragged. A soft thud, then total silence. When he reappeared, the brilliant German shepherd was carrying a rusty, old crowbar in his mouth, his tail wagging with what could only be described as satisfied pride. "Where did you find that, you absolute hero?" Sarah marveled, taking the essential tool. The crowbar fit perfectly between the window frame and the foundation. Years of North Carolina weather had weakened the mortar, and with Duke's massive help pushing from outside, while George pulled weakly from within, they managed to widen the opening just enough. "I haven't been this thin since high school," George wheezed weakly as Sarah helped pull his frail, wasted body through the narrow, terrible space. His legs buckled immediately, 18 months of agonizing confinement had stolen nearly all his strength. Duke immediately positioned himself as a living crutch, his strong, warm back supporting George's fragile weight. Together, the three unlikely partners made their slow way toward Sarah's truck, George's breathing growing more labored with each agonizing step. "We need to get you to the hospital immediately," Sarah said, noting his gray complexion and alarmingly irregular heartbeat. "No hospitals," George gasped, shaking his head. "Brooke has friends there." "Drive? Stone will just declare me incompetent and ship me right back to her custody." The narrative rushes toward the climax. Present day, 5:45 p.m. Sarah's truck climbed into the Blue Ridge foothills as sunset painted the mountains in shades of amber and dark gold. Behind them, a pair of black SUVs, not Brooke's old Mercedes, were approaching fast, too fast to be coincidental. "Mr. Miller, I need to ask you something vital," Sarah said urgently. "Your daughter Jessie, do you have any way to contact her directly? An old family number? Anything?" George's face crumpled with a pain that had nothing to do with his physical condition. "Jessie hasn't spoken to me in 3 years, child. Brooke showed me the horrible, cruel letters, telling me how ashamed she was of her crazy old father, how she never wanted to see me again. Those letters were evil, disgusting fakes, Mr. Miller," Sarah said gently, revealing the ultimate secret. "Jessie is alive and well, and she's a highly trained FBI agent who has been trying to save you this entire time." George stared at her in profound disbelief, his mind reeling. "That's impossible. Brooke showed me the death notice from the Colorado newspaper. My little girl died in a car accident." "She's not dead, Mr. Miller. She's a federal agent. She's been working deep undercover to build the ultimate case against Brooke for all the rural land fraud and murders." The silence that followed was broken only by George's ragged, emotional breathing. Then, slowly, profound, cleansing tears began to stream down his weathered cheeks. "My Jessie, she's alive. She doesn't hate me. She loves me. She loves you more than life itself. Every single day you've been imprisoned, she's been fighting desperately to free you and bring you justice." Duke's sudden, thunderous bark interrupted the emotional reunion. In the rear-view mirror, Sarah could see the black SUVs gaining ground rapidly, their engines roaring in the growing dusk. Brooke's frantic phone call to her network had worked. "There's an old ranger station about 5 miles ahead," Sarah yelled, pressing harder on the accelerator. "If we can only make it there to safety." The first gunshot shattered her rear window, the sound echoing like a hammer blow. Duke immediately positioned himself protectively over George, who had lost consciousness from the extreme stress and sudden exhaustion. "They're not trying to stop us," Sarah realized with a new, terrifying clarity. "They're trying to run us off the road to make it look like a tragic accident." The mountain highway curved violently ahead, a sheer drop below the crumbling guardrail. Duke's furious growl filled the cabin as another shot rang out, this one catastrophically taking out the left rear tire. The truck began to violently fishtail. Sarah fought desperately to maintain control as they approached the sharpest, deadliest curve on the mountain. In the side mirror, she could clearly see Kevin Stone leaning out of the lead SUV's passenger window, a rifle raised for a killing shot, his face twisted with murderous determination. This was no longer about money. This was about survival. "Hold on, both of you," Sarah whispered, making a snap decision that would either save them all or kill them instantly. Instead of fighting the violent skid, she embraced it, letting the truck spin completely around to face their ruthless pursuers head-on, a deadly game of chicken. For a terrifying moment, the two vehicles were racing directly toward each other, a collision seeming inevitable. Duke barked once, sharp and commanding, and Sarah instantly understood the direction. At the very last possible second, she yanked the wheel hard right, sending the truck crashing violently through a small gap in the trees that only Duke's keen eyes had spotted behind them. Dr. Stone's SUV couldn't stop in time. It smashed through the guardrail and disappeared over the cliff edge, its headlights spinning like fallen stars before going dark forever. George's eyes fluttered open as the truck came to rest in a small, hidden clearing.
Sarah, what happened, child? He asked weakly.
We're safe, sir, she managed, though her hands were shaking uncontrollably on the wheel. Duke, the FBI K9 hero, saved us all. The German Shepherd looked back at her with those amber eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages, the ultimate dog loyalty partner. In the distance, sirens were finally approaching, not Brooke's corrupted local officials, but true, undercover federal agents racing to finish what Duke had started 18 months ago. As the first FBI helicopter appeared silently over the ridge, George reached out to stroke Duke's massive head with trembling, grateful fingers. "Good boy, my loyal, silent partner," he whispered. "Eleanor always said the Lord works in mysterious ways, but this time he sent us a four-legged angel." Duke's tail thumped once against the seat, a sound like a promise finally, magnificently being kept. The FBI helicopter touched down in the clearing just as Brooke Miller's remaining SUV crested the hill, its headlights cutting through the mountain twilight like vengeful, defeated eyes. Agent Jessie Miller was the first to leap from the aircraft, her weapon drawn, her face a mask of professional, federal control that barely concealed 3 years of suppressed, agonizing emotion. "Dad," the word tore from her throat as she saw George slumped in Sarah's truck, his face gray with exhaustion but alive. George's eyes widened in impossible disbelief. The woman approaching looked like his Jessie. Same green eyes, same determined jawline, but she wore a federal badge and moved with the absolute authority of a veteran agent. "Jessie, my little girl," his voice cracked with sudden, profound joy. But Brooke said, "The accident. You were dead." "I'm here, Dad. I'm alive," Agent Jessie Miller stated firmly. "And I've been fighting in the dark to save you every single day you were locked away." Jessie holstered her weapon and knelt beside the truck, her trained composure finally cracking, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so profoundly sorry it took this long to get you out." Duke positioned himself immediately between the emotional family reunion and the approaching SUV, his hackles raised, his instinct screaming of the residual danger. Brooke stepped out of the vehicle with her hands raised, her expression shifting instantly to one of calculated, practiced innocence. "Thank God you're all safe. I've been looking everywhere for Dad," she played the victim. "When I found his basement room empty, I was terrified something truly awful had happened to him." "Cut the act, Brooke," Jessie said, rising to face the woman who had tormented her father and ruined her life. "It's completely over. We have everything. The forged documents, the bank records, the medical evidence of systematic poisoning." Brooke's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the cold, cornered predator beneath. Then the sickening performance resumed, tears streaming down her cheeks with practiced precision. "Jessie, honey, I don't know what lies people have been telling you, but your father has been very sick," she wept. "The dementia episodes, the paranoid delusions. Dr. Stone and I have been trying to protect him from himself." "Of course, you're not crazy, Dad." Jessie's voice softened as she addressed her father, then hardened again as she turned back to Brooke. "But you are, aren't you, Brooke, crazy enough to think you could get away with murder and elder abuse?" "Murder, Jessie?" Brooke's eyes narrowed with a flicker of panic. "Your father is sitting right there, very much alive. What murder are you talking about? Are you losing your mind?" "Agent Stevens," Jessie said quietly, her voice deadly serious. "My partner, your people killed him in Wyoming 18 months ago to protect your rural land fraud operation. And the loyal German Shepherd, Duke, survived your attempt to eliminate him. And he has been building the case against you ever since. Our most valuable, silent witness." Brooke leaned back against the car, her final, magnificent performance faltering as she finally realized how much the FBI actually knew. "I don't know what you're talking about. I've never been to Wyoming," she spat, her voice lacking all conviction. "The Mitchell Ranch, 40 miles outside Jackson Hole. You own it through a shell corporation called Hollow Holdings," Jessie recited from memory. That's where you take your victims when they become too much trouble to handle locally. The truth is out. Brooke's professional facade finally crumbled completely, and what emerged was something cold, calculating, and terrifying, making Duke's defensive growl intensify. "You stupid, sentimental fools!" Brooke snarled, her voice a sudden shriek of pure, unadulterated rage. 3 years I've waited for you to give up this ridiculous investigation. And 3 years I've watched that worthless old man cling to life when he should have had the decency to die naturally. Ashley, honey, I loved you like my own daughter. I gave you everything I had, George struggled to say, flinching as if physically struck. You gave me nothing! Brooke's voice rose to a terrified, desperate scream. You took a broken child and tried to fix her with your pathetic kindness. You and that sanctimonious wife of yours, always preaching about love and family, and doing the right thing. Do you know what the right thing is, Frank? The right thing is taking what you can get before life inevitably takes it from you? Jessie took a final step closer, her hand moving to her weapon. Brooke Miller, you are formally under arrest for the first-degree murder of Agent Stevens, attempted murder, elder abuse, massive fraud, and conspiracy, Jessie stated, her voice shaking with professional control. I don't think so, Agent. Brooke's hand emerged from her jacket, holding a small, deadly pistol. You see, Jessie, I've been planning for this very moment for a very long time, and your father is going to have a tragic heart attack right here in front of you, a predictable death brought on by the stress of this devastating confrontation. You'll be so distraught that you'll make a tactical error, and I'll be forced to defend myself, and the hidden camera dog story will die with you all, she concluded with a terrifying smile. She raised the small gun directly toward George, but Duke was already in fluid, impossible motion. The German Shepherd launched himself through the air with the split-second precision of his federal training, his powerful jaws clamping down hard on Brooke's wrist just as she pulled the trigger. The shot went wildly astray, shattering the truck's windshield into 1,000 pieces. Brooke screamed in pain and rage as Duke's weight bore her to the ground, but she managed to maintain her desperate grip on the weapon. Get this animal off me, she shrieked, trying to bring the gun around to shoot Duke at point-blank range. Sarah grabbed the crowbar from the truck bed and brought it down hard on Brooke's exposed elbow. The gun flew into the dark underbrush as Brooke's arm went limp, her scream of pain echoing across the mountain valley. Jessie was on her immediately, zip-tie restraints appearing in her hands with professional, lightning-fast efficiency. But Brooke wasn't finished, even in defeat. You think this is over, Jessie? She gasped, her face twisted with pain and hatred. You think arresting me solves anything? There are others, a whole powerful network of people who clean up problems like your pathetic father. George struggled to his feet, supported by Duke and Sarah, and his voice, when he finally spoke, carried the calm, powerful authority of a man who had spent 40 years teaching right from wrong. Brooke, you're not wrong about one thing, he said quietly, his voice heavy with final sadness. I did try to fix you, but I realize now that you were never broken. You were already exactly what you chose to be. It means I failed you in the worst possible way, George confessed, the truth finally dawning. I taught you that love was weakness, that kindness was something to ruthlessly exploit. I should have shown you consequences instead of endless, naive forgiveness. Brooke's laugh was bitter and defeated. Oh, you're going to lecture me now from your pitiful, moral high ground, old man? No, child, I'm going to forgive you one last time, George replied, his voice filled with impossible, tragic grace. And then I'm going to let the law handle what my love couldn't fix. The words hit Brooke harder than any physical blow. For a brief, shattering moment, her mask slipped completely, revealing something that might have once been a lost, scared little girl. Then the hardness instantly returned, colder than ever. Keep your pathetic forgiveness, old man. I never wanted it anyway. She sneered, accepting her fate. Jessie helped Brooke to her feet, her professional demeanor never wavering, despite the raw, personal nature of the confrontation. "Brooke Miller, you have the right to remain silent," Jessie recited, securing the restraints. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." As the Miranda rights continued, George sank heavily into Sarah's truck, the crushing adrenaline finally wearing off, his heart giving out. Duke immediately pressed his warm, massive body against George's legs, offering a profound comfort that transcended language. "Dad, we need to get you to the hospital immediately," Jessie said, finishing with Brooke and turning her attention fully to her father. "The medical team needs to assess the severe damage from the systematic poisoning." George nodded weakly, then looked up at his daughter with eyes full of impossible wonder. "Jessie, honey, I thought I'd lost you forever." Brooke showed me letters, death certificates, the whole sickening lie. "I know, Dad. I know everything she did to you." Jessie's voice broke slightly. "We've been building this case for 3 years, documenting every single lie, every manipulation." "The hardest part wasn't the basement," George whispered, his voice trembling. "It was thinking you didn't love me anymore, that you had abandoned me in my darkest hour. I never stopped loving you, Dad, not for 1 second of those 3 years." Jessie wept, taking her father's weathered hands in hers. "Every day I couldn't call you, every birthday I couldn't visit, every holiday I spent alone. It was all to make absolutely sure I could save you in the end." Duke whined softly, pushing his head under George's free hand, confirming his mission was complete. The old man managed a weak, grateful smile. "You know what, Jessie?" he whispered. "I think your silent partner here might have saved us all. The good Lord works in mysterious ways. But this time, he sent a German shepherd." The final, peaceful resolution. As the FBI medical team arrived and began assessing George's condition, Brooke was loaded into a transport vehicle. Through the window, her eyes found George's one last time. "This isn't over," she mouthed silently, defeated. Duke's low growl suggested he profoundly disagreed. 6 weeks later, Miller's Creek was completely transformed. Jessie had taken a leave of absence from the FBI to oversee her father's recovery, and the house that had been a prison for 18 months was now filled with hope, gratitude, and laughter. George sat on the wraparound porch in his favorite rocking chair, his color restored and his eyes bright with renewed purpose. Duke lay contentedly at his feet, formally retired from federal service with full honors, but ever watchful, ever loyal. "You know what the strangest part is, boy?" George said, scratching behind Duke's ears. "I feel sorry for her. I truly do. After everything she did to you, Dad, all the elder abuse exposed?" Jessie asked, amazed by his capacity for forgiveness. "She was just a scared little girl when I brought her home. A broken, empty vessel," George sighed. "Somewhere along the way, I failed to teach her that love isn't something you take, it's something you give freely. But that doesn't excuse what she became. Justice needed to be served, and I thank God and the FBI that it was." 3 months later, the Miller Educational Farm sign swayed gently in the autumn breeze as a yellow school bus discharged its cargo of excited third graders. George stood at the gate, using his walking cane now more as a companion than a necessity, moving with the confidence of a man who had found his ultimate purpose again. Duke had become the star of the educational program, demonstrating obedience, boundless dog loyalty, and unwavering intelligence to the wide-eyed children who were mesmerized by his German Shepherd rescue true story. "Mr. Miller," a small girl named Lily raised her hand. "Why is Duke so smart and brave?" George knelt down to her level, Duke immediately moving to his side, his silent, powerful protector. "Well, Lily, Duke used to have a very important job helping the police catch bad people. The FBI K-9 hero," George explained. "But you know what? I think his most important job was simply being brave enough to help someone when they needed it the most, the purest act of dog loyalty." As Christmas Eve settled over Miller's Creek, Jessie stood in the kitchen, watching through the window as her father and Duke made their evening rounds of the farm. rescued horses, sheep, and cattle, all seeming to recognize their heroic caretakers.
He's like a completely different person now, Helen Vance observed, joining Jesse at the window. I never thought I'd see him smile again, let alone laugh like he did at dinner tonight.
She nearly destroyed him, Jesse said quietly, but the master manipulator daughter couldn't break his spirit, not completely. That's because he had something powerful to hold on to, Helen replied simply. Hope. Even when everything seemed lost, some part of him never gave up believing that love, loyalty, and justice would eventually win in the end, as told in this unforgettable, shocking family betrayal documentary. Frank's voice, soft and warm, drifted through the quiet house as he settled by the fireplace with Duke's head resting on his lap.
You know what I'm grateful for this Christmas, Jesse? He said, stroking the golden fur of his savior. Not just being alive, not just being free, but learning that family isn't always about blood.
It's about who shows up, who stays, and who loves you even when loving you is the hardest thing in the world. An unforgettable German Shepherd rescue true story. Outside, the snow began to fall softly on the Blue Ridge Mountains, covering the farm in a blanket of white that made everything look clean and completely new. Inside the old, gracious manor, 2 generations of human love and one magnificent FBI K-9 hero settled in for the first peaceful, truly secure night in years. If this incredible story of dog loyalty, saves owner's life, and elder abuse exposed touched your heart, just imagine how many more true stories of courage and second chances we still have to share. Subscribe to Whisker Tales, hit that loud bell icon right now, and join us for every new episode of courage, loyalty, and second chances. Because every life deserves to be remembered, and every dog is a hero.